there's going to be some of that. It's not quite so.
Like we're sitting in the circle.
Yeah. Pros and cons. You guys ready? Okay. I call this meeting to order. Roll call, please, Mrs. Clark.
Trustee Bertelson,
Here.
Trustee Black,
Here.
Trustee D,
Here.
Trustee Lucine,
Here.
Trustee Moran,
Here.
Trustee Neal,
Here.
Trustee Reinhardt,
Here.
Trustee Wilson.
Here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Welcome to the July 15th Bozeman School District School Board meeting. Thank you for joining us. Public comment will be taken throughout the meeting on agenda and non-agenda items. During public comment, no member of the public will be allowed to comment on contested cases, other adjudicative proceedings, or personnel matters. The public portions of this meeting are being recorded in accordance with District Policy 1420 and Section 2-3-214 MCA. By remaining in this meeting, all participants and attendees acknowledge they may appear on the recording, which will be placed on the school district's website for a minimum of 1 year from today. Further instructions about participating will be provided throughout the meeting. Before we engage in the business of the board, I would like to share with all the core purpose of the Bozeman School District, which can be found on the back of our nameplates. It reads, Bozeman Public Schools exists to ensure high-level learning for all students. We will now move on to agenda item 2.2, Board Education.
All right, good evening, trustees. You might notice some changes since the last time we met. We are now in our new boardroom, 217A, our old library at the Wilson Building is now going to be the permanent boardroom. We made these changes as a result of the passage of House Bill 890, which we wanted to walk you through a little bit this evening to get us all started and to get us all oriented with the new space and how the equipment works, those types of things. Chair Neal actually did most of our board education, so we've got just a couple slides to walk through here with you. House Bill 890 was passed in the 23 legislative session, however, just became effective about 2 weeks ago, July 1st, 2024. Going forward, all first and second class school districts, and Bozeman is a first class school district under the law. We have to make audio and video recordings of all of our meetings from here going forward. So you are now not only being recorded as you were in the past downstairs, but also being video recorded on that camera right there that's looking down on you the entire meeting. As Chair Neal said, we'll have to post this recording on our website within 5 days. It will remain out and available for 1 year, at which point the video can be destroyed. It's not subject to public records requests after that. So we'll have the videos out there for a year, and then they'll be taken down. Minutes are still the actual official recording of what happened in the meeting. So as you have been in the past, approving minutes, that's still a critically important function. That is the official record of what took place at the meeting, not the recording. The recording is never the official record of the meeting. It's always the minutes. We're not live streaming. One of the conversations we had was about whether to put this on Facebook Live or something along those lines. We opted not to do that. There's an asterisk down at the bottom of this slide. The primary reason is that if we were to live stream these meetings, we would have to accept public comment over whatever vehicle we were using for that live streaming, and that gets to be complex to moderate that, and so we opted not to live stream. I thought it was interesting. You can obviously tell we did a lot of work to the library up here since you've all been up here. The new paint job, the TVs, the cameras, all the microphones, all those things are new specifically as a result of House Bill 890. The legislature put in $5,000 to implement this task across the state. That's just money for the state to write administrative rules. There's a zero cost in the bill for the public, and obviously with all the things that we've had to do, you can see that there was a cost to do this for the school board. So wanted to bring that up to your attention, and then Mike Van Vuren is going to walk us through how the equipment works. What you'll need to do, and what you'll need to know about operating things going forward.
Yeah, so very simple from your guys' side. When you look at the microphones, it really is that right button, push it down, everything turns green. Your microphone is live and you can shut it off. You don't have to shut it off every time, but still, like, good microphone etiquette is still going to be important. Like, we can't just assume that because the light's on, it's going to hear me. We still kind of need to lean towards the microphone so it gets picked up and it's sent that way. So what we have is just entirely its own wireless network. It's not like a Bluetooth wireless where it's sending a mic signal to here. We have a Wi-Fi access point. We just built its own network. So every signal is being sent digitally over a wireless network, then fed into the TVs from there. So what that does is it makes it tremendously portable. Like, we could take this whole system and drop it into another building if we wanted to. We would have to stick TVs up there and stuff and everything like that, but we could feed different cameras into it and everything. So that's why we want to create its own network so we can move it anywhere if there's any meeting adjustments that need to be done moving forward. We have the ability for multiple presenters. Mike's on presenting 2, the agenda's on presentation 1, and I'll switch it back to kind of control it through that. So we'll just have some growing pains as we learn to navigate how we do this. So once again, it can be fully integrated with video conferencing. That means it can be a back and forth. It's not just a one-way webinar streamed out and people can't, but so we could go back and forth if we have presenters that are not able to be here in person and we want to bring them in through a video conferencing, we can do that piece. And it's pretty seamless. And the microphones here would be the microphone feed that goes to them. So, Casey, were you gonna jump in?
Yeah, Mike, will you, thank you. Will you drag the camera feed to this side so trustees can see what that looks like from the audience? So that's what you look like on TV to the world?
So is that what they're looking at, or are they looking
Not
at
right
the
now.
right-
Everybody just had the presentation too, so everybody had the information. But in general, one camera or one of those large TVs will have the live feed from here. The other one will have the agenda.
So it'll look like this?
It'll look like that over there. Yep. We just figured you didn't need to look at yourselves.
And those TVs on the audience side are massive, so it doesn't matter where you sit, you can see both TVs. So that mitigates the issue with the pillars. So if we have people that can't see a trustee behind the pillars, they'll always be able to see them on the television. Trustees, you have in front of you, the left side of your module is a speaker. So any audio that's coming through the TV or coming through the microphones is also coming through yours. So you should be able to hear each other well. We also have capacity, and we probably will for the next meeting, add mics for all of EC so that everybody, you don't have to share microphones. I think that's it, unless there's any other questions.
Some adjustments on each one of these devices as we move forward. We can play with the volume to make sure the volume is up for you. And what we plan to do is, if you look on it, it'll say seat, like this says seat 14. We'll assign each of you your own seat, and therefore you'll have your same microphone. And so we can set the audio out and the audio in specific to you as an individual. So.
I'll add that we made the decision to move this whole boardroom upstairs for a number of reasons. We contemplating leaving the boardroom downstairs and just upgrading the technology. As you all know from being down there for years, the microphones were lacking. So we ultimately made the decision to move up here for greater space, greater carrying capacity, and the electronics as well at the same time.
Leanna?
So will we have the ability, if we're not in town, to live stream into board meetings?
No, we're not, no. If we offer live streaming for trustees, we have to offer live streaming for the public to make public comment. So we have on occasion had a trustee on a phone for the meeting. We can explore what that would look like. But in terms of video conferencing a trustee in, we don't plan to do that because it opens up the door for scrutiny around why we're not allowing the public in that way.
Gary?
Yeah, thanks. Mike, I'm curious about the administrative rules. Are those not written yet?
I don't believe they are. If they are, we haven't seen, it usually takes some time to get those out. But the law really is pretty straightforward and clear, so we don't really have any questions we're waiting on for clarification through administrative rule.
And who will be doing that?
I think administration, is my understanding, Department of Administration.
And then will we be noticed on those rule hearing?
Yeah, we can, you have to sign up manually for those hearings, so there's no change as far as that process goes, but we can get signed up for those hearings.
Okay, thanks.
Kevin?
Mike, I was just curious, or one of the mics. I was just curious on executive session, if we go to a closed session, maybe that hasn't changed at all, but how does that come into the play of recording and all that sort of thing? Or Casey?
We just press stop on the recording, turn off the video. Yep. So that on the top where Mike's sitting, you see all the cords, that top thing that's blinking is a digital recorder, and he just would press stop and then resume it afterwards.
To that point, too, makes it tremendously easy for us to download it. It compresses the video file. We're just gonna download it to this computer, create a YouTube channel that is the SD7 board meetings, and that's where we'll post the videos for the year.
Any further trustee questions? Thanks to everybody who did this. Tanya?
I was just going to say, I can already tell that this is a huge addition for those of us that have hearing disabilities. The volume control here, where I'm able to turn it up when one of you is speaking, is really appreciated. I can't even tell you how much difference that makes when Gary can turn that dial up and hear me speaking out of his
Excellent.
console. It's really appreciated, so thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Mike and Casey. Up next, item 2.3, recognition and awards, 2023-24 Gatorade Montana Boys Soccer Player of the Year. Coach Straub, come on up and bring your Gatorade Player of the Year with you. You can do whatever is comfortable for you, and yeah.
Thanks for recognizing Ollie, and thanks for your service too.
If you wouldn't mind taking a seat, speak into the mic, and then it'll get on the recording.
I should have
Thank
paid
you.
attention, right? The last 5 minutes. We appreciate your service for what you do for all the public schools here in Bozeman. So we appreciate that. Thanks for recognizing Ollie for his great achievements. I'm just going to read off kind of a list of his accomplishments, and then just talk very briefly about Ollie. And I think I got this right. I think this is what you provided me. So correct me if I'm wrong, please. Please do. And it's not organized in the best manner, but as a career, his career record is 44 wins, 5 losses, and 4 draws. 31 shutouts, played every single minute from his sophomore season through his senior season. His senior season, this season that he was officially recognized for, he had 59 saves, 9 shutouts, 2 penalty kick saves in the semifinal. Was it 2 in the semifinal? Yep. Okay. And he was recognized also as the Montana Coaches Player of the Year, and that's the Coaches Award. The criteria for the Gatorade Player of the Year is they take into account some service things you do as well, part of the community, additional recognition. The Coaches Player is basically just who they thought was the best player in the state that entire season. So that's pretty exciting as well, and Ollie's well-deserving. With that, he also got the United Soccer Coaches All Region Award, which is pretty special as well. Some extra things, Ollie's done service work in Tanzania. Are you still in the orchestra, or did you, when was your last? Oh, through sophomore year, okay. So you gave up the viola, right, to save penalty kicks?
Yep.
Okay, got it. That's still snowball, it's okay.
Sacrifice.
It's all right. It's all right. We make sacrifices. That's life, right? And then he agreed to host an exchange student his junior year, and I was around to help coach that junior year. And the exchange student that Ollie had, I'm sure kept you on your toes quite a bit, but it sounds like it was a really great experience for you.
Yeah, it was great.
Awesome.
He was a teammate on the team, so it was really fun.
And through all of that, maintained a 3.9 GPA. So as a coach and someone who, I grew up in Bozeman, I graduated from Bozeman High School, I've been around high school soccer off and on a lot. And Ollie was one of those players that you just want to have. And you are grateful to have players not only that have that skill level, but just that mentality in that class and make your world as a coach, both all levels, right? On the personal side, from the team management side, to the tactic side, to the result side, and what you bring to a coach every day, you made my world so much more easier and so much more enjoyable. And for that, I'm forever grateful. And I think you know that, but it's just nice for you to be recognized for that. So you will be sorely missed in Bozeman High School soccer culture and realm and world, and you'll be talked about for many, many years to come. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
That was awesome. Did I leave anything out?
I don't think so. I think that was about it.
Okay, no, I got the stats right?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
sounds right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ollie's going to Westminster College. Maybe tell them a little bit about that and what you're looking forward to there and why you made that choice.
Yeah, so I'm going to Westminster University. It's in Salt Lake City. It's a Division II school. They have a really good soccer program, and it's up and coming. And it's in one of the most competitive D2 brackets conferences in the nation. So it's going to be really fun, and I'm looking forward to continuing for 4 years. I'm happy that my career is not over, and it's going to be fun to be in Salt Lake and only be 6 hours from home, but still be in a super competitive environment. Yeah. That's pretty much it.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you all for having us out, and I appreciate it. Thanks to Dan Mills for coming out too.
I think that's still Mr. Mills to you, Ollie.
Mr. Mills. Sorry. Thank you to Mr. Mills for coming out. Yeah, it'll be a fun next 4 years. I'm really excited.
Thanks for that great presentation, Coach Straub. Are there trustee questions for Ollie? Lauren?
First of all, congratulations, and it was a lot of fun watching you play soccer. And I wanted to comment on who you are in the community. My daughter helped coach the surf camp with you, and she's going to be an eighth grader, and she really looked up to you and respected you. And we get in the car talking about you as one of those people who was a good mentor. And to me, I love that you love soccer, and I know that you have another 4 years of it, but we also are trying to bring up incredible people. So thank you for all you're doing for your community, and I love that Coach Straub really focused on that as well. And I'm really excited to hear how Westminster goes. We'll be cheering from afar.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, I've been watching you for a long time.
Yeah.
And
Seriously.
you were inserted as the starter your sophomore year. I think when Elias got hurt.
Yep.
And you guys should have won the state championship that year if Drew hadn't got hurt.
Yep.
And you only allowed 3 goals that season.
Yeah, it was. I don't think I allowed a goal till the last game of the
playoffs,
regular season.
There were 13 shutouts that year.
Yeah.
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 And you were the starter ever since. And you closed it out with the state championship this year. It was just great to see that happen that day. the girls got it done earlier in the day, and then you guys answered the bell as well. And
Yeah.
that semifinal, that crosstown semifinal, was my highlight of your career. I don't know what yours was, but
Yeah, probably that game.
that was, in my mind, that was the state championship game that night, even though it was only the semifinal, because either one of those teams are going to go in the next game, and watching you shut it down in the PKs, that was really exciting. So,
Yeah.
and I was really grateful to hear that you're going to Westminster and you have a chance to play soccer for 4 more years. And what's amazing about that sophomore year, when you were inserted as the starter, as it turns out, there were 3 Gatorade players in that team, you, Weston, and Nathan. And it's so interesting to look at that team picture. Now that you and Nathan both got this award this spring, because 3 of you guys, and you guys, nobody knew who any of you were. That was 3 years ago. And there were 3 Gatorade players in that team that year. It's just kind of a neat story.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah.
I saw you send me that picture. It was cool.
So, and Coach Straub, you coached here in 2002. You graduated with me in '93, and you coached here in 2002 and won a state championship, or you were the runner-up?
We lost in the 2 minutes of extra time.
So you lost in the state championship game. Then 22 years later, show up, win a state championship. That's a pretty cool story too.
Thanks, a massive part. Thanks, Ollie. And I can't stress enough.
Yeah.
It was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
There was definitely some weird juju on that team. It was a really fun season.
Yeah, one funny. I knew when we all caught COVID, right? Ran through the whole program, whole team, but it happened in a window where we didn't have any games. It was like, if it had happened the previous week, it would have been senior and West, and and so that was like, I knew that it was just one of those things, right? It's written, right? So in certain things in life, they're just meant to be, and it was just written at that point. We just knew it, and I had to step aside and just let these guys lead and let Ollie lead and just enjoy watching.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Thanks again, everyone, for having us out.
Any further questions for Ollie? Gary?
Well, I have the motion, but I have some questions.
Okay.
The position of goalie, in my mind, has always been a very interesting position. So I'm just curious, particularly on penalty kicks, how do you strategize and block those kicks?
Yeah. Every keeper has their own thing. Some keepers do their homework and watch a team who they shoot and just write it down on a piece of paper and study it. And other keepers just go based off intuition. I would say I'm more of an intuition. I never really focus on homework because I don't want to they could shoot the other way than you wrote down on your little piece of paper. So I basically go off intuition, but once it comes to shootout, I sort of get into a mentality of just where I feel like I can just see where they're going. It's hard to explain, but I just went to San Diego for a tournament 3 weeks ago and saved 4 out of 6 penalties on me throughout the weekend. So it was a fun weekend, but yeah, I don't have a certain way. I just sort of base it on intuition and see. Maybe sometimes I'll read the hips, see if they're opening their hips or closing their hips. But yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, how when you're watching that kicker and how they move and the positions foot may be in or shoulders, or just because you have to make that decision very quickly.
Yeah, there's certain keepers who will watch where the plant foot goes, and if it's far away from the ball, then they're most likely gonna close their hips, and if it's close to the ball, then they're gonna go the other way. But I don't think that hard. So
Well, congratulations, well deserved, and
thank you.
thank you for all you've done at Bozeman High, and good luck
Thank you.
in your next 4 years. So with that, I move the following resolution. Whereas Gatorade Company has named Bozeman High student athlete Oliver Olson as its 2023-24 Gatorade Montana Boys Soccer Player of the Year. And whereas Oliver led the Hawks to a 14-0-3 record and the Class AA state championship this past season. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees recognize and honor Oliver Olson as 2023-24 Gatorade Montana Boys Soccer Player of the Year.
Second.
Motion made by trustee Lucine, seconded by trustee D. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion passes 8-0. Congratulations, Ollie.
Great. Thank you, guys. Yeah, just press it.
Thank you very much for coming, Coach Straub, as well. Thanks for having us. And if we could request that you join trustee Lucine for a photo right outside the boardroom here,
Yeah.
that would be great.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. He's a big, tall guy, yeah. Ollie, and you can come back in if you want after that, yeah. 2023-24 Gatorade Montana Boys Track and Field Player of the Year, Coach Peterson. Coach Peterson, thanks for coming.
Of course. Thank you guys for all the work that you do. Feels like we were here about a month ago.
Yeah. It was a month ago.
It was a month ago, yep. Recognizing Nathan for a couple of state championships and a few all-class records that he set. So I probably won't go into a whole bunch of detail on accomplishments of his career, but maybe just highlight a few more things that this outstanding young man has accomplished. As Coach had mentioned, the Gatorade Athlete of the Year, you know, of course, track and field, they want to know your times, they want to know your distances, but, you know, the Gatorade committee, they really want to see the extra stuff that you do. They want to make sure that you are a good student, a good person in your community, you know, someone that younger people should look up to, and this guy is all of that. So beyond his athletic achievements, just being an incredible human being, and one of the, at the same time, most competitive and most level-headed and thoughtful people that I've ever had to be around, to coach and be involved with. I always, you know, you probably don't like to hear this, but I always think back your junior year when you got disqualified in the 1600, and first time I talked to you after that, you were like, that sucks. It happens, but you took ownership and you weren't upset. He rolled with it, and that just showed me everything about Nathan, that that he takes you know, onus for things that happen and takes responsibility, and just an incredible person. And when we think about distance running in Montana, it has forever been changed because of him. There's been some incredible distance runners that have come out of the prep ranks of this state. You know, you saw a handful of them running at the NCAA championships and the steeplechase up here at MSU. You see Duncan Hamilton right here from Bozeman High running at the U.S. trials. There's been some incredible runners from the state, and Nathan shattered every record that there was and buried them for quite a while. But what's cool about track is that those records are meant to be broken, and the great things that Nathan has done in his career is going to propel somebody else to do some great things after him, which I think is the most fun part about track and cross country, that it's a sport where you can compare, you can care about your competitors, and you can be compassionate for everybody that is out there running in that. And that is just an example of at the state meet, so many people were there to watch Nathan. I told the story about the two little boys and their father that were there, drove from Cascade just to watch Nathan run, a distance race. Nobody does that. Nobody comes to watch distance. If you watched any of the Olympic trials, they always cut away. You know, we watch the first two laps, and then we come back and we watch the last two. But people were there to watch him run this year. And it was just a really, really incredible season. So huge congratulations to you, and a big thank you to just our overall school support that we have with our administration, with Mr. Mills, our athletic director, our on-site AD, just everybody in this community that gives these kids such an incredible opportunity to do awesome things.
Thanks, Coach Peterson. I appreciate you not mentioning how Nathan's dad handled that disqualification his junior year.
Well, he was confused as a coach by some people, so we just let it slide.
Appreciate the nice words. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Of course.
Any trustee questions? Gary?
Yeah, Nathan, I've been extremely impressed with how you've developed as a runner in such a short period of time. So you are, I think, early in your running career. And you made a comment, I think, in the paper recently about what you feel your potential is. So I'm curious if you could share with us what you think your potential is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really sure what specifically it's going to be, but I think I'm going to the university where I'm going to be able to reach that potential. And I mean, that's the whole reason I'm running the NCAA. I wouldn't be doing it if I wasn't trying to become the fastest I possibly can. I care too much about how I spend my life to do something that I don't care about, that I don't fully love. So yeah, I'm not really sure what my potential is, but my senior year will be 2028. That's the Olympics in LA. So that's definitely, that's what I'll be looking forward to. Yeah. Yeah.
I will add that, as you said, going to the University of Washington, their distance program there has been incredible. If you look at the last 5 championships in the mile or 1500, University of Washington male has won 5 in a row, counting indoor and outdoor. So it's going to a great program for sure.
Any further trustee questions? Tanya?
Last month, I gave up the opportunity to have my picture taken with you. So sometime between now and the trials in 2028, I want to make sure I get my picture with you.
Okay.
Well, thanks, Coach Peterson. I appreciate you making time out of your busy summer to come here. Nathan, you know I'm proud of you, bud. So great job. And Trustee Black.
All right, I do have a question. I know, Nathan, you've been here obviously multiple times for different things, so congratulations, all your accomplishments. But I think maybe you said it, but I don't remember, so I'm going to ask anyways. What's your plan as far as what you're studying at UW?
I might be going into accounting. Follow the Neils into
Be
accounting.
weird.
But I don't know. That might change. I don't know. Yeah, I don't have a solid answer just yet, but yeah.
Yeah, and that's fair enough. You don't have to have an answer today. I was just curious, though.
Yeah.
As you have a passion for running right now, some people have passion for what they want to study as well. So
Yeah. Right.
All right,
for
thank
sure.
you. And I'll agree with what has been said, but it's been a fun ride watching you the last couple of years, and also hearing the story about your transition through soccer. Also going back a couple of years before that, watching you in basketball. I think you played your last basketball game was probably with my nephew, Quaid, on his team, and maybe my nephew coached that. I don't know. I forget. Maybe Kyler did, but that was fun as well to watch you compete. And that's one thing that I've always kind of seen is you always like to you always competed at whatever you were doing. So therefore, I move that the Board of Trustees adopt the following resolution. Whereas Gatorade Company has named Bozeman High student athlete Nathan Neal as its 2023-24 Gatorade Montana Boys Track and Field Player of the Year, and whereas Nathan won the Class AA individual state titles in the 2016 and the 1600 and 3200 meters at the 2024 state AA track meet, and set 4 state records this past season. And whereas Nathan was also named the 2023-24 Gatorade Montana Boys Cross Country Player of the Year in January. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees recognize and honor Nathan Neal as 2023-24 Gatorade Montana Boys Track and Field Player of the Year.
Second.
Motion made by trustee Black. Where'd that second come from?
Me.
Thank you. That came from the speakers. Came from the sky. Seconded by trustee Bertelson. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion passes 8-0. Blaine, thanks again for everything. Thanks for coming. I know you've been having a busy summer as well, like everyone, so.
Yep, no, thank you. Thanks for your support always.
Yep. And trustee Black will join you guys for a picture out in the hall. So, thank you.
Thanks, everybody. I was actually, we were down in Jackson this weekend. Oh, really? But, yeah.
It's right on the agenda. It's just
Okay.
goofy on this cheat sheet.
Okay, thank you.
While we're tracking track, can you hear me?
I can.
It's really weird. Okay. Tomorrow, this is a shameless plug, but they're having the groundbreaking for the Montana State Athletic Complex, and it's going to be called the Kennedy Stark Athletic Facility,
I didn't know that.
after the two long-term MSU track and cross-country coaches. And so I don't know if that was supposed to be quiet, if nobody knows yet, but I'm really, really excited to have those two track
3:30.
coaches honored. So that'll be tomorrow at 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock or 3:30?
Yes,
Okay, I think you're right, I think it's 3.
it's one of those two times.
Yeah. I actually have it on my calendar, I'll look real quick. 3 o'clock. I would take a motion for consent agenda. Gary,
Yeah, I move consent agenda items 3.1, 3.2, and 3.4.
Second,
motion made by trustee Lucine, seconded by trustee Reinhardt. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion passes 8-0. Thank you.
I would make a motion to approve consent agenda item 3.5.1.
Second.
Motion made by trustee Black, seconded by trustee Bertelson. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion passes 7-0. Item 3.5. Item 4, action item 4.1.1, consider approval of long-range strategic plan 23-24 annual report. Superintendent Bertram.
Thank you, Chair Neal. One of the last agenda items in consent was 3.4.9, consider approval of superintendent evaluation tool. What I'm passing out is just that hard copy of the look-fors that some of you have requested. Okay, 3.4.1. This is the superintendent evaluation and board policy 3610 both point to an annual report tied to the long-range strategic plan. As you know, we went through a full revision process during the 23-24 school year, resulting in changes to the mission, vision, values, goals. The high school has done a lot of work around profile of a graduate. But this particular report focuses on the goals specifically for the 23-24 school year and has accountability related to those goals. It includes multiple parts, but one is specifics related to the 5-year plan district goals, specifics related to LRSP action plans that are completed at each site. So as you know, our principals work with central office and go through a fall, winter, and spring look at their goals. Those are all cataloged in this document and will be made available upon approval. And then school site board luncheons. In that section, you have all of the presentations that were given, all of the data sheets that accompany those board luncheons. I'll walk you through it briefly, and I do have hard copies. It might be a little easier for you to follow along with this. If you turn, the pages are numbered. If you turn to page 2, review, we had 4 measurable goals: early literacy, grade level reading, a PLC goal, and graduation goal. Progress towards those goals. First of all, the early literacy goal called out by 2025, 85% of our kids entering kindergarten will have requisite literacy skills measured by Acadience, which is the benchmark tool used in grades K through 5. Progress towards the goal, again, we're looking at fall scores when our kindergartners come in. I think that fall benchmark is in September. So September scores, fall of 21, 69%, and then the last 2 years, those students coming in at 71%. What I want to draw your attention to, and we've discussed previously, is we have some cohort data for families who engaged in the activities of Bozeman Reads and the outreach opportunities that Megan Roth and her team have provided. It is important to note that that group is not your typical kindergarten group. It's disproportionately high in areas of ML students, free and reduced lunch, and some disability status. But pleased to announce that those kids who engaged in Bozeman Reads work came in at 80% proficient, showing that Bozeman Reads works and is a viable, we've known this, data has shown this for a lot of years. Early intervention is key to literacy instruction. So we're excited that we are expanding Bozeman Reads, and if you've been at Morningstar in recent weeks, it's under construction. They're putting in bathrooms for little people. In those classrooms, we'll have four classroom-based programs plus 2 special ed programs for a total of 6. When you walk in the door, go left, that whole wing will be full of little people starting in the fall. We also, we'll touch on it later in executive cabinet reports, but we have incoming kindergarten students in our Jumpstart programs that launched on July 8th. And Mr. Van Buren, I believe, will give you all the details of that later in this presentation. Okay, page 3. Grade level reading goal. By 2025, 90% of our third grade, and feel free to stop me at any time, 90% of our third graders will demonstrate grade level reading as measured by Acadience. In spring of 22, 75%, spring of 23, 76%, and then spring of 24, 74%. What I want to draw your attention to is while the district, we saw a significant increase in multilingual English learners in just a year's time. So from 22 to 23 to 23, 24, a 70.8% increase. And while we saw that increase of students who not only lack language skills, but corresponding literacy skills, we are maintaining strong achievement in our third grade reading levels. I think that is showing, or to me clearly showing, that the work we've done on the science of reading and on the implementation of high-quality core instruction materials in our K-2 classrooms and then our 3-5 classrooms, coupled with MTSS systems and PLC systems, is doing the work that we need it to do. We certainly have room to grow, and we're focused on that growth. What you have below there is a variety of data. So those dashboards, those are right out of the Acadience site. So those are our third graders, came in at 71%, left at 74%, showing that they made some growth. And then down to the bottom there, those are all of our K-5 kids, that final column showing that all of our students, we increase the percentage of proficiency. And again, this is important because this is norm data. So you would expect that your kids in a norm sample stay about the same compared to the norm sample. So having the same number as the benchmarks go up, having the same number in the fall and the same number in the spring is not abnormal, but we saw increases in the number of proficiency, levels of proficiency across all of our grade levels, which we're excited about. If you go to the next page, page 4, really tiny numbers, I apologize for that, but I wanted to show you that we continue to target and look at achievement gaps within the district. So the blue bars are proficient. The mustard, let's go with mustard. The mustard bars are not proficient. You have that about 74% proficient when you take into account all of our students. But when you disaggregate by students with disabilities, English learners, free and reduced lunch, a higher percentage of those kids disproportionately are part of that achievement gap. That is something that we're very aware of and working on, working really hard on. Those bubbles show you that 70.8% increase in MLEL students. We continue as budget allows, and even when budget doesn't allow, as you know, we cut $4.1 million, but added multiple positions to our K-12 MLEL program. Down at the bottom, there's a variety of literacy data you can look at. We talked about the Acadians on the top row. Our middle schools are still using a STAR assessment. Those spring STAR scores are there. This is the final year for Smarter Balance assessments as a state test. Next year, we move to the MAST. It's a new acronym. I don't know what it means off the top of my head, but what I do know is that you test throughout the year in small testlets versus one large summative assessment. So SBAC data goes away. And then that final one, our high school score, 72% of our students at the high school proficient in ELA, which is a strong number for our high schools. Okay. Moving on to PLCs, I'm not going to read all of this. I can tell you that we continue to be the only school district in the state of Montana that has schools that are designated as model PLC sites, which means two things. It means they've implemented MTSS and PLC structures for 3+ years and have shown 3+ years of student achievement gains. Compared to the state norm samples or other norm samples. And so we started with 1 at Hawthorne, we've moved to 4. As of today, we still have 4 model PLC sites. Those include Hawthorne, Emily Dickinson, Longfellow, and Irving. We certainly, Morningstar should be a model PLC site. They're in a tricky position where they're 95% proficient or higher at most grade levels, and it's hard to show 3 years of growth when you're above 95%. But we're working through that with Solution Tree, and our other elementaries, middle schools and high schools will be working on these goals as well. The high school, Erica's in the audience, the high school is on track to launch a new master schedule, and which includes collaboration time via a late start on Wednesdays, and includes 4 days, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday of, is that correct? Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday of intervention extension period within the school day. And as you know, our middle schools launched a schedule this year. Moving on. Graduation goal. I'm excited about this one. By 2025, 95% of our kids in each graduation cohort will earn a regular high school diploma in 4 years or fewer. This is one of those data points that we wait for OPI to release as they look at cohort graduation rates. We've moved from 89.2 to 87.04 to 89.62. If you look at the graph at the bottom, it's the highest 4-year cohort graduation rate of the last 6 years. So the combination of expanded pathways for student graduation at the high school, along with the changes at the master schedule to include teacher collaboration and intervention extensions, we are hopeful that that will continue to rise, that all of our students, or 95% of our students, will be on some sort of graduation pathway. Page 7, all of those links will take you to those school site action plans. So if you want to get in the weeds on, student achievement in math, social emotional learning, or English language arts at any of our elementary, middle, or high schools or charter schools, it's all included there. Page 8 has the links to all of the presentations and all of the data sheets. And then this report concludes on pages 9, 10, and 11 with our new revised mission, vision, values, goals, and profile of a graduate. The only other thing I want to say about this is a looking back endeavor. So looking back at 23-24 at our next meeting on board retreat on July 29th, we'll present the looking forward on what the next 5-year plan will look like and how we are articulating the new goals and action plans related to those new goals. I would take any questions. The only other thing I want to let you know is our new mission. It's on your nameplates, but it's also going to be right up there on that big white space in super large font. And then over here, it'll have the Bozeman Quality Education logo. So if you're watching this online and go to our meetings, you will see the mission statement. It fits in the camera screen the way we designed it, so everybody will know our mission.
Thank you. Trustee discussion, questions? Kevin?
Casey, I just have a question regarding the PLCs. Do you see, or are there challenges that exist to maintain the PLC culture that's being created?
Yes. There are certainly challenges. So collaborative culture doesn't come easy. So it's a lot of work of not only the building principal, but the guiding coalition to build that culture. And then with staff turnover, there's that constant need to train new people and bring new people into the culture, which we are really leaning heavily on the importance of not only the building principal, but the guiding coalition as a leadership team within the building, so that there are 8 to 15 people in a large high school, or 6 to 8 people in an elementary school that are championing that culture, that when the principal's not in the room, the culture gets maintained and upheld. This is the way we do things at Hawthorne, or this is the way we do things at CJ Middle School. So yeah, there's challenges with that. We are excited for Sarah Hayes' new role. Sarah's on summer break, but can't stay off thinking and getting ready for this. And so we're excited to have her partner with primarily some of our elementary schools and middle schools this coming year to support the principals, coach principals, and also work with those guiding coalitions to put those pieces of the puzzle in place. We also have ongoing work to implement the MTSS system, the interventions and extensions, so that it's systematic and we can hire new people, and it's not. We're moving away from the days that to get high quality literacy intervention, it's that intervention teacher down the hall, and when she retires, that all of our teachers in a systematic way are able to provide those interventions and extensions. So yes, it's really hard to get over this hump and become a model PLC school, and then it's probably even harder to maintain it long term, because you submit every year and you have to continue to increase those scores year after year to stay on the list.
Gary?
Thanks, Casey. I have a question on the grade level reading goal. So when you just look at the number of 74%, that's a good goal, but it's not real high. But when you dig into that and look at the significance of the multi-language learners that influence that, and the other graph kind of demonstrates that. Does that influence the goal we would have when we look at all students?
Yeah, good question. And we, as the LRSP, you were in those committee meetings. We had a long conversation about that that goal is a district level goal. And so we're trying to ensure that once we move to the site level, that they're taking a realistic look at who's in their building. So if you're a third grade class at Highlight and you have 25% MLEL students, most of them level 1 or 2, getting 90% of your class to meet the district goal is really not attainable in 1 year. It's attainable long term. So a couple things happened in the LRSP. One, we extended the timeline to give us more time to get there. Two, we reinforced that those site-based goals need to be disaggregated. And so you may have different proficiency goals, SMART goals for your MLEL students and your special education group than you would have for students that are not in those categories. But we still are maintaining that all means all, and that we're okay. We're going to do all kinds of work to get to that stretch goal, and we may not get there, but it doesn't mean we're going to lower the goal because we still want all of our kids to get there, if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. It helps me shape when I talk to people in the community about this. If they say, well, they're only reading at 74%, then I can expand their knowledge about this and say, well, but there's a large percentage that don't even know English, and they're part of this 74%.
Yeah.
Tanya.
So kind of following up on that same question, the chart on the next page, or yes, the bottom there, I'm not remembering the 2 assessments at the bottom. Are those new assessments? And then I have a follow-up.
Yeah, so no, they're not new. So I don't know the date, what year, but in recent memory, the ACT became the state assessment for our high school students. There used to be Smarter Balanced at grades 3 through 8 and 10, and then we moved to all of our juniors, correct? Taking the ACT as the state assessment. Do you recall what year that was? 16, 17 maybe. So our sophomores also take the pre-ACT as a practice, and then every student in Montana takes the ACT as juniors. Above that, the SBAC has been around for a long time. So Smarter Balanced, it used to be grades 3 through 8 and 10.
Thank you. I didn't know the acronym.
Yep.
And when you say ACT, then I actually knew that too.
Yeah.
Just put it in this chart and I was lost. Are there any of the...
Yeah, there's like 6 acronyms in one chart. So
Yeah, sorry about that. Are there any of the goals that at this point, 2025 at one point seemed like it was a long ways out when we were setting these goals, and our population was very different, as clearly reflected there. Are there any that you're uncomfortable with at this time, or?
I think we did have some great conversation at the revision. If you go to page 10, you'll notice that on grade level reading goal, it's been extended to 2029. That was a change that was made. Graduation goal 2029, professional learning communities goal took into account that the high school is just launching this year. That was moved out to the spring of 2028. And early literacy, we took away the date and just said every year. Like we want all students coming in every year into the future with that. So there was some acknowledgement that to make these realistic, which in SMART goals, realistic is one of the acronyms. We needed to extend some of those dates.
Thank you.
I have, are there any further trustee comments? I have a comment on all of this data appears to be trending in a good direction. This BSD 7 cohort graduation rate data, maybe somebody put this in perspective for me, but it feels like we should be tooting this horn. Feels like in your presentation, you should be tooting your own horn. This seems pretty huge. If we are at the highest rate of graduation, at least since 2017, that just seems like a really huge piece of information. Everything we do is towards this goal.
Yeah, it is the bookends of the early literacy on one side and graduation on the other, and I think it's our high school teams, whether it's school counselors, our teachers, our administrators, that are one, digging into data early and figuring out early warning system of who's at risk, and then two, flexing all of the pathways. There are some Montana AA high schools that are not using the pathways that we're using. It's sort of like everybody has to fit through this, through the square peg through a round hole type of thing. And I'm very thankful that our administrative team at the high school level is student-centered and figuring out that we do have kids who have had disrupted education for a variety of reasons, and that the same graduation pathway is not going to work for every kid. So yes, we should be shouting from the rooftops about that, but we're also a district or a team where we're not there yet, and we have more work to do.
Is the HiSET options data a part of this?
22, 23, yes, that would include HiSET options graduates from 22, 23, yes. This is always a year. We won't have the this last year, the graduates of 23, 24 data until sometime later in the fall. But we're in year 2 of HiSET options, so this would be that first group. That would include the first group of HiSET options kids.
And that started 2 years ago.
Yep.
Under
And that's capped at 3% of our seniors, and we are right near that cap when we run those numbers. So we're maximizing that as an option.
And our student population is vastly different from the makeup of who our students are compared to history. I just think that
Yeah,
is-
I mean, if you go back to 2017-18, less than 1% of our students were MLEL, and now over 6% of our student population is MLEL students, yet we have the highest graduation rate. Those students are included in that rate.
That's what I was trying to make come out of my mouth.
Yeah.
So I just think that's pretty awesome. Any further discussion or a motion?
I would make a motion to approve the 2023-24 LRSP as presented.
Second.
Motion made by trustee Black, seconded by trustee Wilson. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion passes 8-0. Item 4.1.2, consider approval of revisions to policy 3410, student health physical screenings examinations. Superintendent Bertram.
Yep, thank you. If you recall at our last meeting, we had two groups of policy. One group required one action because it was legislative changes. The other group was 2 readings, and you approved those second reading in the consent agenda tonight. This policy, 3410, student health, physical screening, and examinations, was one of those legislative changes. Trustee Lucine brought up a great question around, does this apply to athletic training services? We didn't immediately know that answer, took it back, pulled that one, took it back and had some conversation. As with every single topic that we take to legal, you get multiple opinions. And so we got one opinion from one set of attorneys that said absolutely 100%. This is includes athletic training services. The other group of attorneys said we don't think this applies to athletic training services, but if you wanted to be safe, include this in your permissions forms. So this is, we're bringing the policy back. No changes from last time, so the same policy changes that were a result of the legislation, with the important note in the, if you scroll up to the agenda item, in number 5, after consultation with district legal, the following verbiage was added to the online student registration and permission process for high school and middle school sports. So when you sign up on Dragonfly for your student to participate in middle school or high school sports, and you say yes to a whole bunch of things, one of the things you are saying yes to is you consent to your child being seen, served, examined, and or treated by the athletic trainer assigned to the extracurricular activity. So in line with the legislation, we are getting parent permission via Dragonfly, which is required for anyone to participate in middle school or high school athletics, that when you sign up, you're agreeing that the athletic trainer provides services to our athletes.
Any trustee questions? I heard you.
I second.
Motion made by trustee Reinhardt, seconded by trustee Bertelson. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion passes 8-0. 5.1.1, policy first reading, discuss recommended revisions to policy 7225, fundraising. Mr. Waterman.
Yes, good evening, trustees. Having a conversation today with regards to our fundraiser policy. The policy we've linked it. We had multiple people editing it, and it was just easier to link this one up. You want me to get this closer? Is that what you're saying?
Yep, thanks.
All right, can you hear me now? Multiple people editing this, so that's why it showed up as multiple colors on the screen. So we currently have, I should back up. We've had a lot of interest in fundraising, and as that interest has been increasing, as the budget committee took a look at fundraising and looked at that to one of our priority solutions to a lot of our budget problems. Since that has happened, the number of fundraisers that we've been encountering and the dollar amount that they've been generating has been growing steadily. So in order to retain some control over those policies, we're recommending a change and an expansion of the scope of our current crowdfunding policy that we have up here tonight. So our first change to propose is to change this from a crowdfunding proposal to just an overall fundraising proposal. Crowdfunding is still mentioned in this, and there's a lot of detail, especially within the procedure that we'll get to in a second, but crowdfunding is just a subsort of fundraising. So this policy would govern all fundraising from student groups, partner organizations, and within the district. We also have, you should know, within the 3,000 level policy series, a policy on student fundraisers that complements this, and there's a lot of language that's been copied from that policy into this proposal. So our intent is to broaden the scope of this, again, to expand it from just crowdfunding to all fundraisers, to make sure that we've got control over who's using the district name when they raise funds, and then also make sure that we've got control over what happens with funds that are raised in the district's name once that money materializes. And then we want to make sure that we've got some control over duplication of requests. As you can imagine, a lot of the businesses get hit multiple times with multiple requests, so we want to have some control over that. The Policy changes are really pretty simple. We've just changed crowdfunding to fundraising in most cases, but we have included for your review procedure. Along with this, we're, as you know, procedures are administrative implementation of the policies as directed, but we expected some questions with regards to this, so we've included the procedure within this discussion, and that's really where the meat of this change is. So the real meat of the fundraising policy is that anything that's permanent fixture to the district or its equipment or its property, the money generated from that will come back to the district. Anything else that's loose, that's mobile, that's part of a game day experience, whether it's a banner, a movable sign, anything along those lines, we would be able to let that money be raised by organizations external to the district. So think the boosters would have access to that game day experience type of revenue. The food service language, Lacey, if you scroll down just a little bit, there's some language in there that says fundraisers can't compete with district food service operations. That's actually a copy forward from the student policy, student fundraiser policy that's already in fundraiser language for students, but we just wanted to expand that so that nothing is competing, no external fundraisers are competing with district food service operations. And then lastly, there's some corporate sponsor info that appears to be new language down at the bottom. That's actually currently in procedure 4530P. So we just moved it to a place where it's all under one spot. It's not new language or a proposed change. It's just a new location for that language. This is not a policy change related to a legal change, so it'll be a discussion item tonight, and then if the board is in favor of it, we'll be moving that forward for consent at the next meeting.
Any trustee questions for Mr. Waterman? Gary?
Thanks, Mike. One thing, if you could clarify, I think in the policy, at least the way I read it, the board may have to approve some funding or fundraising efforts.
Yeah, so if there's a match required or personnel expense required associated with that, then those would come to the board for approval. It's important to point out that that's, again, those are all the black letters up there. That's still currently part of the crowdfunding policy. So this would just expand it to all types of fundraising, regardless of if the money was generated through a fundraising platform on the web or if it's just any kind of fundraising. To be consistent, if there's in-kind contributions or personnel costs associated with it, then those would come back to the board for approval.
Is that before the fundraising starts?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
All these are currently managed through our KISSFlow platform currently. So the idea is that, if someone's got an idea, something that they want to propose, they would enter a KISSFlow form for the crowdfunding. So that infrastructure is already there. This will just expand at one more level to include all fundraisers.
Any further trustee discussion? You got what you need, Mike?
We'll bring this back for approval at the next meeting then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 5.2, committee reports, LRFP.
I'll start with this one and then fill in the blanks, Casey and Kevin, as you see fit. I'm going to put this on the website. So the Long Range Facility Planning Committee met last week. The first order of business, the largest order of business, and the reason for the meeting is that we are patiently, just kidding. We are currently on the market with the Kimberwicky properties. We have a listing agreement signed with Cheryl Ridgely from ERA. The board awarded the bid to her recently, and on Friday night, we went live with our listing. We've got 2 acres, 1 acre apiece. They're being listed. Comps show we're at about $1.5 million an acre for undeveloped land within the city. So the 2 of those added together, the 1.5 for each of the acres, $3 million total. So we are live with that listing. We've signed an 18-month listing agreement with Ms. Ridgely. She told us that she felt this pricing was where we should be, but it's aggressive. So we might end up waiting for a while for this to sell. As we discussed a while back, any proposals to actually sell this were our board decisions. So proposals will have to come back for the board for final decision on that. So we are live. The meeting that the Long Range Facility Planning Committee had was to discuss what to do with the funds that are eventually going to be raised from this, from the proceeds of this land. We talked about there's really three different things we could do. We could invest the money in some kind of facilities projects that the district currently has. We could deposit the money and kind of sit on the cash, or we could look at investing in those in some salary costs or our primary use of funds within the district. Since it's one-time funds, and tax relief. I don't know how I said that. So investing in facilities, one-time use, or tax relief. We eventually decided, the Long Range Facility Planning Committee decided that of those three, the reinvesting in district projects was the best use of one-time funds. So that was the thrust of our discussion. And at that meeting, we took a look at some current needs that the district has, and the committee landed on parking at Gallatin High School being the top priority. If you've been over there during the school day and tried to park, it's quite the challenge, as Erica can certainly attest. Also at Gallatin High School, addition of turf fields available for practice was the second priority for the Long Range Facility Planning Committee. So those turf fields may or may not end up being on the Gallatin High property. Currently, as you know, when we started in 2016 talking about Gallatin High School, there was significant interest and desire to collaborate with the city, in particular with the sports park across the street. So the long and short of it is the Long Range Facility Planning Committee directed us to have some initial administrative conversations with the city of Bozeman and the sports park to start development of to see what it would look like and what kind of terms would be necessary to use these proceeds when the property sells to construct a parking lot across Oak from Gallatin High School, and then also potentially a turf field for use jointly by the community and by the school district across the field again at Gallatin High School. It was a priority of the committee that the district would have long-term access to those, both of those properties if we contributed significantly to their construction costs. So that's where our initial conversations are going to be. I think we've scheduled a meeting at some point in the next couple of weeks to have those conversations. We haven't started them yet, but that was the preliminary direction from that meeting. There's two other things that we talked about, but I might stop there and see if the board has questions on either Kimberwiki or the plan for the sports park.
I would just add that that long-term MOU with the city at the sports park that would provide access, one, and then lower no-cost rentals long-term is a deal breaker. So if the city is unable, the sports park is unable to make that work, then we're going to focus back on the Gallatin High property.
Questions with regards to any of that information?
Gary?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I'm curious, did the committee discuss, looking at expanding parking at Gallatin High, has there been any discussion on adding another wing to accommodate 300 students with Gallatin High?
That didn't come up at that particular meeting, Casey. I can tell you that wasn't part of that issue. That's more of I think the first order of business, and the reason it didn't come to that meeting is that would be something that we'd look at part as a redistricting, a redrawing of boundaries before we look at adding the cost to the building. Casey, did you have something you want to add?
Yeah, and I would just add that site is master planned for that wing. And then part of that master planning when the wing goes in is one of those grass fields becomes parking So it's sort of, there's not a lot of good options on campus for expanded parking, which is pushing us across the street for parking. Regardless of turf, where turf lands, having a parking lot across the street will be very helpful.
Sandy?
Almost pushed that button. Was there discussion on splitting them up and selling them separately, or is it easier to sell them
Yep,
combined?
that's a great question, and that was actually part of the RFP. We asked our proposers to decide and tell us if they would choose to market, because there's two 1 acre lots at Chief Joseph Middle School. We'd asked if they would recommend selling them separately or together, and it was our realtor's recommendation that we have more options. Developers and builders have more options with the larger parcel, so we went with that recommendation, realizing that offers can come in any way that they might. So we're marketing them together. If there's proposals brought forth to split them, we'd consider that as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right, seeing no other questions, there's two other items on the Long Range Facility Planning Committee meeting. The first one was the Whittier parking lot. So if you think about if you think about Whittier, there's a parking lot at the corner of 6th and Short. Be directly west of the Whittier playground. Essentially, the district owns that parking lot, and it's in disrepair. The asphalt is bubbling up, and there's some significant repairs needed to that, including the understructure, the substructure of the parking lot. Just paving over, it's not going to fix the problem for longer than a year or two. So we are moving forward with that parking lot to get improvements made to it. That parking lot is in part of the Midtown TIF district, so we've been working with the city, and the plan is to use TIF proceeds to finance the improvements to that parking lot. As we had that discussion, and as we hearken back to our discussions in the Budget Committee about using district assets as revenue generating tools, what we had recently, we had the discussion with the Long Range Facility Planning Committee about limiting access to that parking lot so we can start charging people to park there. There's concerts happening at the Elm. There's lots of things happening in Midtown. So at this point, we're moving forward with plans for that parking lot to limit some access to it. Probably install some stop arms, so you can pull up to them and then sign in, or if it was an employee, they'd scan in. If it's just a regular community user, they would pay to use the parking lot. We don't have to, once that's installed, we don't have to use it. We could just leave the gates up if we so chose. But we thought now is a good time to have that discussion and make sure that the committee was okay with us putting that infrastructure in going forward. Construction at that, it's a little ways out there in the budget planning cycle right now, is the city, and the construction would take place next summer, so summer of 2025. The other issue that we talked about, Long Range Facility Planning Committee, was the bus barn. This is just an aerial of that. So to orient you, Costco, which I know you're all familiar, is right down here. The district's bus barn this is the district's bus barn. Our property is this rectangle here. There has been significant community interest in affordable housing at the bus barn site. This piece of the bus barn down here is not slated for any use in the immediate or foreseeable future for any district purpose. So we've had a lot of folks coming to us asking about that parcel and if there's plans for it, and if not, if there's things that they can do with it. Again, recently it's been about affordable housing. So at the Long Range Facility Planning Committee meeting, the recommendation was made that the district needs to have a handle on its plan for that property moving forward before we release any of it to other purposes. So it's this property running be northwest to southeast. Right along the corner is a high pressure gas line. So that limits the use of this property. But our question is, and what we brought to the committee is, the bus barn right now is full. All the bus slots are used. We've got the question outstanding about electrical infrastructure, those types of things. So if and when we need to expand the bus barn. We need to make sure that we've got enough real estate reserved for that purpose. We don't want to have to go out and find additional real estate because we've used the rest of the site for affordable housing or any other purpose. So the committee's recommendation was that we move forward with a master plan type of study for the property and specifically the bus barn use of it. We're including in the budget that you'll see here in a couple weeks some money for that master plan, and that was the extent of the committee's recommendation. So that was it. The proceeds of the Kimber Wiki sales, Whittier parking lot, bus barn. Questions on any of those remaining issues?
Gary?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I'm curious, when you talk about us having a plan for affordable housing, is that, I'm curious, I mean, I'll share my thoughts on that right now. My preference would be to have single-family housing that's affordable. So families can move in and have, a yard and stuff like that. And so I'm just curious, in the discussions you've had on affordable housing, is that something that's reasonable, or would that limit what would be done with this property?
Sure. The denser the property, obviously the more people you can get on there, the more the value is of the lot, just generally speaking. So we don't have any recommendations to make about the density that we would propose to put in there. I'd further, and we've talked a lot about this, Casey and I have, we don't have cash to put towards this project. We're a school. We don't have a lot of expertise in development, property management, anything along those lines, and we have staffing issues as well that we don't have staff to assign to this. So our contribution to this would be the land. And as we leave the Long Range Facility Planning Committee meeting, we wanted to have some direction about, making sure that the bus barn property itself is sufficient to meet the district's needs going into the future. And then with whatever piece of ground is left, that would be open to some kind of RFP or proposal from folks who know a lot more about this than anybody within our administrative team.
So if you play that out, the master plan that we're going to pay to have drafted will not include any of the details around affordable housing densities. It will pencil in that gas line, it'll pencil in future expansion for the bus barn, it'll pencil in Northwest Energy infrastructure for electric buses, and then it'll draw a big rectangle around what's left and say there's 6 acres or 8 acres left for affordable housing to take proposals through an RFP and ultimately to have trustees decide some of those details.
Any further discussion? Thanks, Mike. That was item 5.2, right? So now we're on to item 5.3, discuss 2024-25 board committee assignments. Superintendent Bertram, Vice Chair Black, and myself met a couple weeks ago, and before that, we had asked for any requests, any individual trustee requests for certain committees or school liaison positions, and received those from a few of you, and we did our best to honor those requests. I think we're pretty close to 100%, maybe not quite. Are there any trustee questions on the committee assignments? And if Superintendent Bertram or Vice Chair Black have anything to add, go for it.
No, I think you just draw your attention to the blue column on the right, which are the proposed assignments for 24-25. And after hearing feedback from trustees, we'll bring this back as a consent item on the next board agenda.
I would just say one correction. Looks like on the back last page for the schools. I think in the past we had Bozeman High School and Bridger Charter Academy combined. We split those out this year, and it appears that there's still ones. We have 2 Bridger charter schools. I didn't see
Good
that
catch.
early-
I'll fix that
I
right
didn't
now.
See that earlier than today, this moment.
Everybody happy? Okay,
Thanks, you guys.
yep, thanks,
Good job, leadership. Thank you.
thanks. Up next, sorry, my cheat sheet, I think, is one item off, but are we public comment on non-agenda items?
Yes.
Is there any public comment on non-agenda items? Which brings us to executive cabinet report.
Yeah, Mr. Strauss, if you would, could give trustees, I know last time we talked a little bit about the Grow Your Own, and we've made some headway, and talk about maybe the special education crisis we were in a month ago and how we've resolved some of that.
Yeah, thank you. Let me get to my data here, just a second. So as you know, the trustees, you guys approved months ago the ability for the district to provide some scholarship for potential employees and current employees. I would tell you that about a month ago, we were in a pretty interesting spot with 17 special ed teaching vacancies, which we've never seen any numbers like that before. The really good news now is that we think we have all of them filled. We still have a couple of folks that have been offered that haven't 100% committed, but I can tell you right now we have 15 out of 17 filled, and very optimistic that we will have the other 2 filled here this week. The transition to teaching money, what that allowed us to do was make a nice shift, I think. Obviously, when we describe that program to you, the intent there is to use those scholarships for current employees. We were able to do that. We had 7 of our current paraprofessionals who applied for the transition to teaching grant. Out of that 7, I have to count real quick. We had 4 that were granted. And so 2 of them with sort of full scholarships, meaning they're going to go after either a master's degree program or a bachelor's degree program. And then the other ones were the ABC to Teach. And then besides those 2 folks, or those folks, we also had 3 more new hires that we were able to grant that ABC to Teach. They're folks that have a bachelor's currently. They enroll in ABC to Teach, which is about a $1,900 program. They do that program online. They'll get a provisional Montana license, and they have 3 years to complete the program to become fully licensed teachers in the state of Montana. So it was really fortuitous. When we asked you about the transition to teaching grant, we had no idea we were going to have this many special ed vacancies. And at the end of the day, it's really saved our bacon. I mean, I think we're going to be in really good shape. The one position that we're still having some difficulty hiring, we thought we had someone hired, and then a family situation prevented them from accepting the position. But we thought we had a teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing, which you guys know we struggled with all last year. But we still do have one more candidate that we might. Again, we've got a little bit of money left over from that set aside with the transition to teaching. We may be able to get them on and help them through that ABC to Teach as well. And then we'll hopefully have a teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing. So really good news. And thank you again for supporting that program. And at the end of the day, like I said, we had no idea when we came to you, I think when was it, Mike, February? When we were doing the budget, that we were going to have that number of special ed vacancies, but I feel like the executive cabinet, with their help, we did a pretty quick pivot on how to use that money. But the other thing I'm really happy about is that we were able to award those scholarships to some really promising paraprofessionals. And I wish you guys could have been on the other end of the phone calls with me. I mean, they were just ecstatic that they were selected to continue their education and become teachers potentially in the Bozeman School District.
I think it's important to be upfront and transparent that ABC Teach was not, we didn't foresee that as being our desired pathway forward to hiring teachers in Bozeman Public Schools. However, after SPED vacancies sat open for weeks and months, we revised that posting to align it with ABC Teach, basically asking for applicants who had bachelor's degrees in anything. And so it's a different group of recruitment and retention tools than we've ever used before. However, I feel good about the people that we found through that process.
That's great news. Gary?
Yeah, thanks, Pat, and congratulations on moving it forward. I'm curious if you can share with us why we had so much special ed loss.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real variety of reasons, Gary. So again, it's a combination of folks that, that moved out of Bozeman. That was one group of folks. We also, and this happens every year, we had approximately 4 special ed teachers that moved from the special ed classroom into the regular ed classroom, which happens quite frequently. You'll get a special ed teacher who's really excellent, but maybe after 7 years or so, they're starting to get a little bit, well, they need a change. I'll put it that way. And so then they apply in their building for regular ed positions, and those principals are like, oh my gosh, this is a great teacher. Of course, I'm going to, hire him. So it's a combination of kind of some movement out of town, some movement within the district of special ed teachers into regular ed jobs. And we did have a couple of retirements as well. Yep.
Kevin?
Well, Pat and everybody that's worked on this, thanks for creative thinking. Obviously, you said this wasn't the first pathway that you were thought of, but to solve a challenge that was real at that point in time. I would also probably add not being involved in any of them, but I'm assuming that these are passionate people, and through my times of continuing going to different schools and that sort of thing, that's what we have. And I think that's our most valuable asset, is people that are passionate about students and kids and that sort of thing. And I think this just opens another door to some additional people that are passionate about kids' education and kids succeeding regardless of where they're at. So I appreciate your thoughts in creating this opportunity and using basically all the tools that we possibly can to get the bodies in the classroom that we need to support the students. So thank you.
Sandy?
Special ed is just has some different things than a classroom teacher. There'll be support for these teachers coming in for all the different things that they need to be able to do.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, like Casey mentioned earlier, it's a different group of recruits that we have. So we understand that we're going to have to give them a different level of support. And, Chad and I have already begun discussions on that. I know Chad's already had some strategic discussions with our special ed coordinators to help in that effort. And so, yeah, absolutely.
That's great.
Thanks for your good work, Pat. Great job.
The other executive cabinet report, I think Mr. Van Buren has an update on Jumpstart.
Yeah, so last week Jumpstart started, which is great. So we were able to visit all 3 programs. We have Jumpstart at both Meadowlark and Emily Dickinson, and then we have the Bella program that's run by the World Language Initiative here in town at Highlight. So we were able to visit all 3 of those programs, and they are all off to a good start. We have about 196 students enrolled between Emily Dickinson and Meadowlark, and then another about 40 students over in Bella. So right now we're just under 250 students that are engaged in targeted learning around literacy. So if we think about those numbers in that long-range strategic plan, we're going to start boosting those even more than we have in the past with the work that Megan's been doing. So I think some of the big things that giving kudos to both Adrian and Nellie Brown, who are the admins for that program right now. First time doing it, not knowing what we're doing, building a program, getting it started, going through the hiring process. People are committed, then it doesn't start right when work is done, school year's done. Now I have a couple of years of summer and they say, well, maybe I don't want to do this, right? And so they've done a really good job of moving through those pieces. The other things that were just some challenges going into it was transportation, making sure the transportation lined up. I know Mike Waterman worked well with First Student and with Kelly to create those routes, and I'm sure they're still tweaking them just like we do at the beginning of every school year, tweaking those bus routes. But at the end of the day, we're not hearing any like, oh, a bunch of kids are left behind or a bunch of kids are still on a bus and we don't know where to drop them off. So that is a success. Lunch, food programming, lunch programming for kids, another just something that you have to problem solve and move through, especially when you're running a program for the first time, and that's been successful as well. I think the other piece too is just a great partnership with United Way. So United Way started their summer program before we started Jumpstart, and so in the middle of them moving through there, we threw monkey wrench in, and so they did some really good work with Nellie and Adrian at those two sites to really kind of coordinate how do we bring kids into two separate programs at the beginning of the day, and then bringing those kids back together at the end of the Jumpstart day for the rest of the day. So once again, first time we're doing this, I think it's running pretty well. And once again, I think the leadership at those two buildings and then the leadership at the Bella, we were really impressed when we met with the World Language Initiative. The leadership that they have, the programming they have going on for the students there is really amazing. So already have a list of things that we can do a little bit better when we do it next year, but I think we're off to a good start.
If you circle back to the long-range strategic plan discussion and those achievement gaps, if you think about a student in poverty, that has typically been a barrier for them to access our summer programs due to transportation, due to food service, due to full-day childcare. And so just pleased that we pulled all those pieces together. So we have some students who are getting picked up at 8 in the morning, going to Jumpstart, having breakfast, having lunch, then transitioning into the United Way camp in the afternoon, doing fun activities, getting on a bus and going home. And then United Way working with the foundation and community donors to try to scholarship all the free and reduced lunch students within the camp. So far, so good on a pretty cool endeavor.
Tanya.
Can you remind us of the age of the kids in Jumpstart?
Yeah, incoming kinders to incoming third graders. And the Bella program will reach past that. They don't have the restriction around the age group in the third grade level. They kind of expand. So they have some older kids up through 5th grade, and then they also are bringing in some older kids to be like junior camp mentors for the younger kids as well.
That's the world language piece of it.
Gary?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And this is a 6-week program, is that correct?
Yes, 6-week program, yep.
Okay, that's awesome. Thanks, Mike. Board of Trustees reports. Summertime, probably not very many. How's all your vacations? Gary?
Well, I'll just update you on this effort I've had to convene all the key education stakeholders together, created a list of 80. And so far, I'm getting a good response. So it should come together, and I'll keep you updated. And if you have any thoughts or comments, the one question I'm starting to ask people is if they could explain to me what our system of education is today. And I haven't gotten any responses yet, but there are groups are going to discuss that and see what they come up with. So Anyway, that's the update.
Making good progress.
Yeah,
So,
this is a great effort.
yeah, thanks for
Great
your
effort.
putting a lot into that, so thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no further trustee comments, I will adjourn this meeting.